Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you're watching this. My name is Scott Patterson. I am the Statewide Behavioral Health Manager for AOC. And today we're going to have a conversation with Beth Gillia.
Hi, everyone. I am Beth Gillia. I'm the Director of the Institute of Public Law, which is the home of the Corinne Wolf Center for Child and Family Justice, as well as the Judicial Education Center.
And Beth, I wanted to start off, I know we're going to talk today about flow, and we're going to talk about kind of flow in the context of the judiciary. And I wanted to start off, and I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but there's a positive psychologist who talks a lot about flow, and his name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And when he talks about flow, he describes it as a state of complete immersion in an activity. And that's what I'm hoping we'll talk about today, is how we can find our flow.
Right, that sounds great to me. And I think what interests me about this topic in the professional context is how it connects to overall well-being. And the JWell Now is the monthly e-blast that the wellness subcommittee puts out to help judges achieve and feel healthy and well. And we've focused on things from being outdoors to joy. And this month, we're going to focus on flow and how we find it in our lives, both, I think, personally, but hopefully professionally too.
I think that's a great idea. And I think, I imagine some of the judges and some of the people listening to this video will think, why are we talking about flow? And I think for the precise reason that you talked about. Life, particularly as a judge, is incredibly stressful. It can be isolating. And when we're able to attend to kind of our inner world and our outer world in ways that are promoting health and well-being, we might find that we can make it through a day a little bit longer. And so I'm wondering, are there any things that you do in life to find flow?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I guess before I say how I find flow, I want to say a little about what I think the experience of flow is like. And for me, and I think it fits the definition that you provided before, it's complete and total immersion in something so that everything else falls away. And it feels, I mean, the word flow is exactly right, because the feel of it is fluid. You're not self-conscious. And the way I feel it most frequently is in rock climbing. And in rock climbing, rock climbers often have a goal, which is to on-site a new route, which means that you do it from the ground up without falling, without ever having tried it before. So your first try. And so what goes into that is, and it's usually the goal is to do a route that you've both not done before, but that is at the limit of your ability. So you're pushing yourself. And rock climbers will stand at the bottom of a route and they'll look at it and they'll look at all the potential holds for their hands and feet, and they'll kind of map out where they go. So there's this conscious effort to anticipate. But then once you're on the rock, if you're in the flow state, your brain is not conscious. You are moving, and your mind and your body are working together in unison. And there's no time to think about, oh my God, I forgot to meet that deadline, and I didn't feed the goats this morning, or, whatever thing is bugging you, it's gone. And you are just moving and connecting. And it's an incredibly powerful and joyful experience, and very, very fluid. So that's where I experience it most. But I thought I would also give one example of a work-related flow experience, because I think, we're mostly talking about work here. And that's in appellate argument. For me as an attorney, now I no longer do appellate argument, but when I did, for me, appellate argument was, I had to be so prepared that in the moment I could let go of all my notes, all my worries, and just fully engage in the issues that the judges were concerned with. So of course I had things that I wanted to say, but I had so fully incorporated them that I was able to be responsive and relaxed and give back and forth. And that was the total absorption immersion in the moment as well.
So that does sound incredibly like flow. I mean, that sounds present in the moment and not necessarily thinking about any of your arguments or what they're going to be, just responding with what's right. Now, the rock climbing example, in my mind, I try to draw some parallels to work. It's a little terrifying. And I think of some of the cases, some of the work that the judiciary is engaged in may also be terrifying. Sometimes judges are tasked with responding to really serious situations. And I wonder if some of our judges don't find flow in the exact same way you're talking about, really just thinking about, I'm going to be centered in the courtroom, I'm going to listen to the arguments, and I'm going to make the decision based on what the law is. And I think there, a couple of the judges that we talked to prior to this also talked about finding flow when they're writing opinions. So when they're in the process of writing an opinion and they're just really involved in it, they don't hear the phone ringing, they don't hear their assistant, they don't hear anybody else because they're completely absorbed in that process. And I think it's beautiful when that can happen in work. And I wonder sometimes if it doesn't happen more often than we're aware of. And so when I think about flow, I often think about that. And the clinician in me thinks, we're really talking about mindfulness. We're talking about being present in the moment. And we're talking about focusing on whatever activity we're doing and doing that to the best of our ability. When we're able to engage in flow, we're able to be present, and it increases our ability to engage in wellness. It decreases frustration and increases frustration tolerance. It allows us to really just be present versus being scattered. I think often when people think about flow, they think, okay, where's the book and what's step A, B, and C for flow? And the great news is there are some suggestions people can have, and really finding flow is finding what really is meaningful to you and doing that.
So what I think is important about flow is not just the joy of the experience, but also that when you're in flow state, you can really accomplish things that you might not otherwise be able to accomplish, that you're pushing yourself to a new level, but your brain, your conscious brain, is not interfering. And so all the self-doubt that you might have, the questioning, falls away, and you can push to a new level of achievement while you're in flow state.
Like with the rock climbing that you were talking about, setting a goal and setting a clear goal, knowing that it's going to be, I'm going to give myself 3 hours to conquer this, or I'm going to give myself a day to conquer this. And really, I liked how you talked about just mapping out the process. And once you engage, not being worried about the map, just being worried about being present in the moment and engaged in flow.
The other thing that I think is really critical about flow is, I said it a little bit differently a moment ago about, the self-doubt falls away. It's the fear of failure falls away completely.
Sometimes finding flow is hard work. And what I would say is, if you're struggling, like if you really want to read this book, and typically a book is a thing you can do to get into a flow state, and it's just not working for you, put the book down. Go do something else. Attend to your needs, attend to some self-care, and come back, because flow is going to be there when it needs to be there. And I want to know if I can ask you a question. So it's been a while since you were a judge, and I'm wondering, when you put the black robe on, how does flow show up then?
I could fully engage with the parties in a way that was truly fluid, and I could ask really good questions. That's when I knew I was in flow, because I was uninhibited, but also mindful of the rules, of my role. But I was able to really fully engage with what was happening in front of me and what the parties were doing in front of me. And that was, that's how flow felt to me from the bench. And that's when I felt I was most effective,
Excellent. So it was those times when you were completely engaged with what was happening in the courtroom, with all of the parties there, and able to ask those, I always fall back on the clinical words, those meaningful questions. Those meaningful questions you were able to ask and probably get answers. I'm imagining too, in those moments, I'm imagining that every single person in the courtroom felt deeply heard and understood regardless of whether they agreed with the decision. They felt seen and heard.